Let's talk about summer jobs. I now have 4 years of college under my belt, which means that I also have a few years of summer job experience. From these jobs, I've gained a wealth of unexpected lessons. So I feel like it's the least I can do, share that. Plus, I think it's just good to spend some time and reflect on it all. Before I go on telling my story, I'd like to note that it's my story. I recognize not everyone gets a summer job, or it doesn't mean that their day-to-day job will change just because the seasons do. As a scholarship athlete with parents willing and able to help me tie up the loose ends, I've been fortunate enough not to have a normal job year-round. My parents have basically told me that during the school year, my jobs are athletics and school. And in the summers, that I should basically do my part to get a job to help pay for the bills and bolster my savings. In high school, it was basically the same thing. I just stuck my head down and worked on rowing. Freshman summer, I landed my first real job at a gas station adjacent pizzeria. There I tended the oven, did the dishes, took phone orders, cleaned and made deliveries. There I worked by the hour and raked in tips by the day, mostly just through deliveries. The tips would vary, as would everyone's attitude that walked into the pizzeria. This was my first time working in the service industry. Thankfully, I'd walked into the job with the idea that everyone had their own shit going on and that I was basically just the conduit for which they'd deliver a greasy slice or 2 or 5 to their lips. As someone who practices mindfulness, it was extremely interesting to see the people who would walk in for a pizza like it was a mission, treating me almost as if I was the pizza itself. It really made me rethink the way that I treated people in the service industry. As a result, I try to focus on how I greet, request from, and give thanks to those working in the service industry. I was always being teased for being the college boy, but they respected my work ethic, and it was nice to also feel like I had an impact on the business. Here I worked as close to 40 hours a week as I could, and can remember just being out of my mind excited if I could have a morning or afternoon off to try to surf the little summer waves on the Space Coast. Now, by the end of the summer at the pizzeria, I didn't feel like I learned a whole lot besides those kind of ins and outs of, you can't expect anything from anyone, really. And everybody does have their own shit going on, and they're not gonna treat you how you want them to treat you. So that's basically what I learned from my first job. Now, let's fast forward. The following summer, I applied for a few internships, one of which was to create videos for the local arts district. I didn't get the job, but it would still end up being an important connection, and I'll talk about that later on. So I ended up driving around the city window shopping for help wanted signs and came upon a bike shop. Not like the vroom vroom kind of bike shop, but like ding ding bicycle shop. The application process was pretty simple. All of the standard identification kind of things, plus there was a follow-up meeting the next week where they'd hand me a bike in a box and ask me to assemble it, just to see if I knew my way around with tools and bicycles in the shop. So before that second interview, part of the process, I gave a little extra effort and reached out to a family friend to see if I could swing by his bicycle shop in my hometown, and he helped me assemble a road bike before I went back to snag the job. So working at the bike shop, it was a much more laid back kind of environment. Working in the pizza shop was like working at the post office. So it was never-ending work at every moment, and that's kind of what I enjoyed about it. It was a bit like a game, like just go 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 go. Like that's the feeling I had at the pizzeria. But then moved into the bike shop and it got a little slower, but I think I ended up learning a lot more there. When I worked there, the staff had a keg in the workshop, and we had a TV that was constantly playing a World Cup game or the Tour de France. Here, a coworker challenged me to think about something called Essentialism, which I'd say is a pretty prominent thing in the bicycle world, which is basically a mindfulness strategy or lifestyle that promotes a disciplined use of your time, actions, and resources. Every now and then, I'd ride my bike into work, about 20 minutes each way, sometimes wet. Actually, most of the time wet. It rains a lot in Florida. And they had a shower at the shop, so it made riding to work on the bike a pretty commonplace thing to do, like the spirit of the job. Out of everything there, I wouldn't trade the customer service experience I had here for the entire world. Basically, as a bike technician, your job is to talk with the bicycle owner like you're a doctor and they're the patient that is normally pretty clueless as to what to do with their bike. This means that you have to have conversations with everyone that comes into the shop. My summer went from, hey, give me that slice. No, that one. To, hey, I'm Johnny Appleseed, and this is my story, and can you please help me with my bike? So much better. So much better. And much like the pizza shop, I encountered every walk of life, daily. I met athletes that would drop tens of thousands of dollars on their triathlon bikes as a hobby, and I'd meet people young and old who would come in begging for a tire pump so that they can get home before the sun went down. It all made me realize that everyone has a story, and most of them are pretty damn interesting. I asked the manager if I could leave the position at the shop a week before school started so that I can get the rest of my life straightened out. One of those days, I was reading Ernest Hemingway's For Whom the Bell Tolls. During the season, I was doing some writing and reading, but I was more so just staring at the page or screen when I tried to write. I mean, I think I cranked out one half-baked story that was kind of inspired by a passing of one of my childhood dogs. Back to the Ernest Hemingway thing. I quickly remembered that it was because he had sought to live a story-filled life that he had so many stories, that he could give thanks because he didn't settle for staying inside and working a normal job. A quote that I love from Benjamin Franklin, or maybe it's just one of those quotes that you attribute to famous people, I don't know. I'm gonna say it's from Benjamin Franklin, but it's write something worth doing or do something worth writing. And that's something that I hold dear to my heart. Back to Ernest Hemingway. I think I was 15 pages into the book, and I was fed up with staying in my room, and I shut the book, I packed a duffel bag, and I had my truck pointed south within the next hour. I went to the Florida Keys, where Ernest Hemingway had lived. I went with the intention of writing, and I did just so in this blog post that I'll link to below. Between these two jobs alone, the pizzeria and the bike shop, I think that they gave me the confidence to go out on a limb and just be comfortable talking to strangers and truly enjoy the experience, rather than just navigating my way as quickly as I could from nice to meeting you, have a good one. After these jobs, I took more time to learn the people around me and make more meaningful connections. Junior summer. This is the big one. Junior summer is when you get the internship. Now, I know a lot of people who have been lucky enough to have had internships for a lot longer than this. I also know people who didn't get internships all of their college experience and still landed great jobs. Starting immediately upon my return from the Keys in the fall of 2018, I began researching summer internships for the following year. Over the course of 8 months, I applied for 53 internships. The jobs varied from video production to intelligence analyst to writing to museum curation. I had no idea what I wanted to do. I just knew I wanted a professional job where maybe I could wear a tie or just like use my brain more than my hands. The search that began in August of 2018 was still dry in the May of 2019. A couple of my applications led to the first round of interviews, but never to the second. After I was declined a media internship that I wanted so badly with Under Armour, I was beginning to lose hope. So I started to reflect about the previous summer jobs and possibilities that I'd missed out on. Was this summer just going to be like every one of those? But those couple of things that I noted earlier that I first saw as failures flipped the script. So I'm gonna touch on 3 things. Number 1 is the very first internship that I did not receive. 2 is the failed writing, the failed fictional writing piece about my dog. And the 3rd is the blog post that I wrote when I went to the Keys. Number 1, I still had that connection. Even if I didn't get the job, I still had that connection. I was in good terms, and this woman told me to stay in touch. Number 2, in this fictional piece of writing, I said that I was working at a magazine, or I wrote as the protagonist, as someone who would be working at a magazine or a paper, I forget which one. I was writing somewhere, and I only got the job because the people who were hiring liked my style of writing from my blog post. Not that I had any internship or, experience before that. And 3, I took initiative and went on a trip and just wrote about my experience. I found a story. And here's where it all comes together. I sent an email after my 53 internships were declined to the connection that I had made the summer prior. She sent me another person to contact, and they sent me another person to contact. And then I emailed this magazine with the blog post that I wrote about the keys. 1 interview, barely any professional experience. I didn't even write for the school paper once in my life, and I got the job. And this is my junior summer now. So junior summer, I worked at a business, sort of editorial advertisement sort of magazine. These companies would hire us to write articles about them to improve their image and spread their image around the community. And with this, I gained extremely valuable experience. My very first paper, I think just because they wanted me to be excited to be there, sent me to this place in Melbourne where I could drive tanks. Not where I could drive tanks, but where somebody who pays thousands of dollars can drive tanks. And I get to write a whole article about that. And here's a picture from inside the tank where I'm looking out the scope. And here's another picture of me in the magazine in their laser tag sniper area looking all like stealthy. That was probably the coolest thing I went and did. The more meaningful things, I went to a company that started as a small business and worked its way up and is like one of the largest privately owned aerospace companies. I get to sit across the desk from CEOs, interview them, and like I felt like my presence commanded respect. It was a phenomenal experience working for them, and I think I wrote a couple more articles. Ultimately, it was not a paid internship, and I felt like a little pressure to come back home. Just not that like pressure was put on me, but I felt like I needed to come home and help my parents out. And I worked for my dad for a little bit at the end of last summer, and I made some own money too, because otherwise I would have been broke. I mean, I was already broke after that, but unpaid internships are slavery. It's like, oh God, never again. This summer, what am I doing now? Why am I so dirty? I'm working with my dad and we're installing tile. It's a lot of fun. It's a nice break from the rest of the year. But school can get like really demanding, and when you're working a job that's like really intense on your mind, like writing, or otherwise, if you have a different mind than I, it's nice to have a little break and just do some manual labor. I recall last year working at the magazine, I would get so bored that I wasn't using my body, and I'd go wash my coworkers' dishes, and they'd be like, thank you, and I'm like, no, thank you so much for having something to do. I'm going back for my 5th year at the end of the summer, a victory lap, and I'm gonna finally get my bachelor's degree. I still got some work to do. Yeah, if you enjoyed this, please let me know. If you have any questions, park them down below. Yeah, I'd love to find engagement in the YouTubey. So that'd be neat. Thanks for watching. It means a lot to me. I mean, this whole project means a lot to me. I'm working pretty hard in my extra hours to just make sure this all comes together. All right. That's all. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next week. Wednesday? Wednesday's when I'm doing these. By now I should already have a blog post up. Oh, I've actually included a link in the description below to the Command Post blog, which should already be posted because I was ahead of schedule. If you're into reading, if not, I get it. Reading's hard. You know, you don't have to do that. That's all. Thank you. Cut.